Hi there, I'm Eitan, and welcome back to the Wix Wiz. Today we're going to be talking all about how to make something on your Wix website accessible to members only. We're going to start from the simple no-code solutions such as member-only pages and adjustments to your CMS collection permissions, and then we will hop into some Velo examples which will require code, gradually getting a little more complex and even visiting the backend. So if you at some point feel like the tutorial is too simple, you can jump ahead to the Velo examples, and hopefully we will cover something that will help you solve your specific problem with your website and make that specific thing that you want to make members only, members only. So if you want to learn how to do all that and more, let's get started. Okay, so first a word about the setup. So I am here inside of a brand new classic Wix website, the classic editor, but everything that I'm showing you today can work equally inside of Wix Studio. Making something member only is a very broad topic, and the first step to understanding how to do this will be to understand the Wix Members Area app. This is a free business solution that you can add to your Wix website from the app market. I will say that there is a small caveat here in the sense that if you are making stuff member only using code and you're building a completely customized member registration system, you don't technically have to install this application. But in most cases, even if you're doing a customization, you'll still want to install it. And definitely, if you're trying to approach this with no code solutions, then you will need to install it. So that is where we are going to start today's journey. So in order to add the Wix members area, we're going to go over here to the side panel and look for Add Apps. Okay, this is where we're going to add apps, and it might look a little different in Wix Studio, but you should have the same general functionality. And once we open that, we will be given access to the app market. And we can just use this search bar or this search bar over here in order to search for members. Okay, here already in the dropdown, you can see that I have the Wix members area. And I'm just going to go ahead and select that and click Add to Site. So the Wix members area is done installing, and as you can see, Wix has added a few new things to the site. So first of all, the page that I'm on now is the member area page. These are pages that are accessible only to members for managing their profiles. And if you go over here to pages and menu, then you can see that it's been kind of added in over here. And we have the option to add in new pages as well if we want, etc. But this video is not about the members area. It's about making things member only. Another thing that we have here is the login bar, and this will allow users to see their login status and either log in or log out. And just I'll make one note here that if for some reason you accidentally delete this from your website, um, let's say I dismiss this, I ignore all the warnings, you can always go ahead and add it back in by going here to Add Elements. And then you can just kind of search over here for login, and we should be able to find a login bar and just drag that back to our site. So just in case you accidentally remove that, and you can make some certain adjustments for how it looks in terms of will it show the name, will it show just the image, and etc. etc. But yeah, so these are just some surrounding details regarding the member area and what to expect once it gets installed. And now we'll hop in and talk about how we can actually utilize this member area to allow access to certain things only for members. So the first and most basic way that we can make something members only is by setting the page settings of a specific page of our site to be member only. So let's hop in here to our pages and menu. And I'm going to go ahead here and add a new page to the site. So I'm just going to go ahead and click Add Page. And I'm going to add a blank page to the site. And let me go ahead and add in, so this will be our members only page. And if we go over here to the three dots that you can see next to the page inside the site menu, we can go to settings and then to permissions right over here. And here we can set the permissions of the page to be either everyone, password holders, or site members. After we select site members, we can also drill down and be more specific. So we can do all members, specific members, members with roles or collaborators, etc., etc. But generally, if you just want to make something accessible only to people who are site members, then you just have to click this right over here and publish your site with those changes. I'm just going to go here to SEO Basics to see what the URL of our new page is. So it's members only page. And I'm going to go ahead and add in a menu just to make everything a little easier to navigate on our new site. So I'm just going to drag in one of these standard horizontal menus, and I'm going to put it right up here. Last thing I'm going to do is just add a little bit of content to our members only page. So I'm going to go ahead and add in text, and I'll add in a heading 1 and drag that here to the page, and I'll write here members only. Let's center that so it looks nice. Awesome. So here now we have a members only page, and the content that's on this page will be accessible only to members. So only a member will be able to see the text that we have here. Let's say we have some secret content that's only for members, then we can put that here and only members will be able to access it. So let me go ahead and publish the site and show you what this experience looks like. So here I am on the published site, and as you can see, the login bar just says the words login, which indicates to me that I'm currently not logged into the site. So I'm currently an anonymous visitor visiting this website. And what will happen is that if I try to go to this members only page, then you can see that it is prompting me to either sign up or to log in. Okay, this is the default sign up and login that comes out of the box with Wix. And we also have the option to either customize this or develop a completely custom experience with Velo. I'm not going to cover that in this specific tutorial, but please let me know in the comments if that's something that interests you, and we can create a tutorial all about customizing sign up and login in the future. So this is what it looks like to make a specific page member only. And this works because the content that we put on this page is not content that's in a specific data set or anything like that. It is just content that exists on this page only. And so if somebody was not able to gain access to this page, they wouldn't have access to that content. Now I want to talk about a slightly more nuanced situation where you are managing data. And when it comes to data, we might want to create experiences where the data itself is accessible only to members. And in that case, restricting access to the page doesn't necessarily mean that the data is protected and is for members only. So let's hop in and explore that now. Okay, so in order to create a CMS collection to store our data, I'm going to go over here to the CMS. If you haven't done so yet, you might need to add the CMS to your website. It's just a click of a button, and then you should have access here to your collections. I don't have any collections here yet, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to create the first one. And I am going to create with AI. You can put whatever data you need, either from CSV or start and build it out by scratch. But since I'm just creating an example, then I'm going to create with AI. And what I'll do is I will create a collection of students, let's say, and it'll be name, email, grade, test score, age, let's say. Those are the fields that I'm going to use. And now Wix is kind of generating those with AI. Awesome. So we'll just add all of those to the collection. And we can see here now that we have, in one moment, we were going to have a mock collection with those fields and some data populated inside. Okay, so that's our collection. But what we really want to talk about today is this, permissions and privacy. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and click on that. And this is actually a widget that Wix recently kind of restyled. So if this looks different to what you are familiar with, then double check your website. It might have been updated to this format. And so now Wix gives us a few default scenarios. So who can view this content is just for anyone. Okay, so that's the kind of one of the defaults that Wix provides us. We also have collect content and we have custom. Okay, so let me talk a little bit about custom because I think that that gives us a little more insight into what all the possibilities are for accessing and changing data on the site. So if we want to make something on our site members only, then you can see here that we have the option to, let's say, set view, so who can view content from this collection, to members only. We also can limit in terms of adding, updating, and deleting the data. But since we're talking about access here in this tutorial, what we're really concerned with is the view. Okay, so you can see here that I can set this collection data to be, let's say, viewed by everyone. That's what would happen if I was here on show content. So this can be viewed now by everyone. And in terms of the custom layout, that would be checking this checkbox right over here. Okay, I'm going to add that within members only, we also have this nuanced permission of items creator. So that means that the viewer is not only a general member of the site, but it's the person who actually created that item in the collection for collections that are user generated. So let's say you have a custom form that's collecting data and creating new items in the collection. You can set the view permissions to be not only a specific member, but the item's creator. This is only if the people who are creating the data inside the form are actually members, otherwise this won't really work. But I digress. So first of all, let's see what it looks like if we set this data to be member only. Okay, so viewing this data will be member only. All the other stuff is currently at the default, which is admin. So I'm going to go ahead and click save here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new page on our site. I'm going to create a new page on our site, and this page is going to be a page that is for everyone. Okay, so let's go ahead and create that new page. And I'm going to call this everyone. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a repeater to this site. So this page is a regular page. Anybody can access the stuff here. I'm going to add in a list. Let's add, let's say, this default one here. And I'm going to connect this list to the data from my collection. So I'm going to go over here and click Connect to CMS. And I'm going to add in a data set. I'm going to choose my students collection. And now I'm just going to kind of like connect some of these things to the student collection. So for example, this I will connect to the name. Okay, so I'm just going to connect this over here to name. And I'll connect the one under it to, let's say, email. Okay, so right over here, connect that to email. Okay, so we have a collection here that is connected. These images, I didn't create any images in this collection, so there's nothing really to connect to. I'll go ahead and delete the image just so that we don't get confused. Okay, so all we essentially have here is this list with the names and the emails of the students. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to publish this. And I'm going to head over to the live site in order to demonstrate to you how this would look to a member and a non-member. Okay, so here I am on the live site. I'm currently on the home page. What I'm going to do is I'm going to navigate to the Everyone page, but I also want you to take note that I'm currently not logged into the website. So I'm going to go here to the Everyone page. And now you can see I'm on the Everyone page. You can see it here also in the URL, but you don't see any of the data that we connected to the repeater. And the reason behind that is because we set our collection to be viewed by members only. And since our repeater is trying to get data that cannot be viewed by just any site visitor, we're going to need to log in order to see that data. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to log into the site, and let me just sign up with a new email. So I'll do aton plus tester1 at thewixwiz.com. Can't even spell my own agency right, thewixwiz.com, and I'm going to say tester1. And I'm going to try signing up. And as soon as I sign up, I should be automatically logged into the website. And now you can see that this data in the repeater is accessible to me because I am a member. Now, one more thing that I want to clarify is that even if you are going to put data from a collection on a members only page, you still want to make sure that your data in the collection is protected in the right way. So let me explain what I mean. So let's go back here into the editor, and let's say that instead of using the Everyone page, I am currently on the members only page. And I want to add a repeater here and connect it to the same data collection. So you may think to yourself, okay, now that this page is a members only page, I essentially don't need the same permissions that I had before. So I can just go over here to permissions and privacy, and I can set this to be, for example, view by anyone, right? Because I am only going to be displaying that data here on the members only page. But even though you're not physically displaying the data from that collection on your website on an accessible page to everyone, technically the data in the collection is still accessible to non-members if they know how to hack into your Wix website. I have a video that demonstrates this as well, how to hack a Wix website, white hat hacking, of course. But it's important that once you are delving into CMS collections, you set the permissions correctly to make it member only, regardless of where you are choosing to display it on your website, assuming that you want that information to be accessible to members only. So just to recap, until now we've talked about two things. One is members only pages. This is a great way to make something member only if it is built into the page. So you're not using data from a collection to display any data or dynamic data on your page. Rather, you're just designing a page with all of the elements, text, images, etc. on the page, and you want to make that restricted. That is a great use for a member-only page. If you are creating a data-driven website with the CMS collection, then you want to make sure that you have set the correct permissions on the collection as well as whatever pages you want to display it on if you want that page to be restricted or not. So now that we talked about the two classic no-code situations and how to make things accessible for members only in those two situations, I want to explain one more thing before we hop into some of the more complex use cases which will require a little bit of coding. So in addition to Wix members area, the Wix also provides many other business solutions that you can add to your site for free, such as, for example, Wix stores, or Wix pricing plans, which can be used to make something not only for members, but also for paying members, etc. So these business solutions, Wix bookings, Wix events, all of them have certain settings that can be relevant for members only. And I'm not going to go into each and every one because it's different for each one, and these things change from time to time. But just be aware that within the business solution that you're working with, so for example, Wix Stores or Wix Bookings or Wix Events, then you may have certain aspects of that business solution that you can limit to members only. Some of them also require membership. So for example, Wix pricing plans, only members can sign up for pricing plans. So by adding them in, by default, you're also adding in membership to your website. So that's one more thing that you might want to explore if you are working with a specific business solution, you're wondering how to make something members only, try hitting Google and searching for that, and you might come across an article by Wix explaining exactly how to do that just using the settings of that specific business solution. So now that we've covered all, or at least a large chunk of what you can do in terms of making things accessible to members only with no code, I want to hop in and show you a few coding tricks that you can use to introduce more nuanced member accessibility that you wouldn't be able to do with the no-code solutions. So the first scenario that I want to demonstrate is a scenario where you have a mixed page. So essentially you have a page that has assets that are both for all members and for members only. So we showed how if we connected this to, let's say, data, and the specific data was member only, then it wouldn't display the member only stuff for non-members. But what about a scenario where it's just a plain page where I dragged in a few elements and I want some of the elements to display for everyone and some elements to display for members only? Or it might be vice versa. Maybe I have some elements which I want to display when the visitor is a non-member, but when they're a member, they actually don't need to see that specific element. So I've created this page to demonstrate, and we have two images on this page. We have this woman and this marble design. And let's say that this picture of the woman is for members only. So that means when a member is visiting this page, they'll see the woman, but if it's a non-member, then they will not see that image. So in order to do that, we're going to need to add a few lines of code. And in order to add code to your Wix website, you're going to want to go over here to dev mode and just select that and turn on dev mode. If you're in Studio, then it might kind of be on the side and it's called code mode, but it'll look pretty much the same once you click on that. And here we have the IDE where we can write code for this specific page. So before we hop in and start writing any code for our website, I just want to take a brief digression into the Wix documentation, the Velo reference, and point to some of the things that we're going to be using throughout this demonstration, just so that you know where to go and look for it. You could also always just Google like Wix members Velo API or something along those lines, and it should take you right over here. But if not, then you will just have to go to dev.wix.com/docs/velo/API reference. Okay, that's where you're going to want to head. And here we have many, many, many APIs for all of the different business solutions and special things that you could do within Velo code. Specifically, we're going to be interacting with one or all of these three APIs, which are Wix members. So we have Wix members front end, Wix members version 2, and Wix members backend. Specifically for this first demo, we're going to be in Wix members front end. And you can see here that we can use this in order to get certain information about the current member who is logged in to the website. So we can use this API called getMember. And this will allow us to get information about the current member that's logged in and even figure out if there is a member logged in, for example, using this authentication. And we can do something like logged in. Okay, so this will check, for example, if a user is logged in or not. Okay, so these are all different APIs that we are going to be using throughout the rest of this tutorial. And sometimes I might pop back in here to show you what I'm using, but sometimes if not, you can always just open this up by yourself and try and find that specific API that I was using, for example, using the search bar up here. So now that we understand where to find more information about the Velo APIs if we need to, we're ready to hop in and start actually coding our page. So again, what we're trying to do is we're trying to make this woman over here appear only for members, okay? So the first step to doing this will be to go over here to this side panel, and I'm going to set the default value of this image to be collapsed. Okay, that means that it won't exist essentially on our live site unless I do something in my code to expand it, which is what we're going to do. Okay, so that's what we're going to do here. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to give an ID to this image so that I can easily identify it within my code. So I'm going to go over here and I'm going to rename this, and I'm going to call this members only image. Okay, and this is what I'm going to use inside of my code to identify this element. Now that I've done that, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to import the authentication API from our Velo API. So I'm going to go over here, import authentication from Wix members frontend. And I know to use Wix members frontend because we're currently adding code on the page of the site as opposed to our backend, which is something that we're going to look into a little further on in the tutorial. Next, what we're going to do here is we're going to want to check inside of the onReady if we have a member logged in. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to say const is logged in equals to authentication dot logged in. And what should happen now is that is logged in will be true if there's a member logged in, and it'll be false if there is no member. So what I'll do, just for the sake of testing and demonstration, is I'm going to add in a console log. So console.log is logged in, and I'm going to log the value here so that we can take a look at it later on when we're running some testing. The next thing that we're going to do is we're going to add a condition. So I'm going to say if is logged in, then I'm going to expand the image. So I'm going to select the image using $W and select the members only image, and I'm going to say expand. So expand is essentially the opposite of collapse, and that means that it'll show that image when there is a member logged in. And I'm just going to go ahead and format all this, and now we're ready to go ahead and test this on the live site. I'll take this opportunity to note that I'm testing all of this stuff on the live site because it's rather challenging to test things related to membership inside of preview mode. So if you've been designing your site and not using a lot of Velo code, then you may have been using preview mode because it's quite convenient for just checking out the design aspects and some of the basic functionality. But once you start adding in code and specifically things that are related to member only, then it becomes harder and almost impossible to test properly using preview mode, and you will need to publish your site or publish a test site in order to thoroughly test these things out. So with that said, I'm going to go ahead and publish my site and then head over and demonstrate to you what we've achieved. Okay, so here we are back on the live site, and I'm about to head over to our new mixed page. But before I do that, I want to make sure that I am currently logged out of the website. So I'm just going to go ahead and log out, and then I'm going to head over here to our mixed page. And as you can see here on the mixed page, I can only see the one image that's supposed to be for everyone. So I currently don't see the woman over here. And if I open up the console log right over here, by going to the dev tools, then you can see that is logged in is false. Okay, so I'm currently not logged in, so the value of is logged in is false. But if I go ahead and I log into the site, so I already have an account, so I'm just going to go and log in with email, and that's Aton plus tester1 at thewixwiz.com. And my password, I think I already gave it away to you guys, but there I am. So I go ahead and I log in. And what I'm going to need to do now is just refresh this page so that the code on the page runs again. And now you can see that I have access to both images, and we can see that is logged in equals to true. Okay, right over here. So one thing you might have just noticed is that when I logged in while I was already on the page, the image didn't show. So essentially, the code on the page didn't rerun again. Okay, so the page code runs once when the page loads. And if we want to detect whether a user logs in or logs out, we're going to have to use some of the other Velo APIs in order to implement that. So now what we want to do essentially is make sure that this code snippet that we wrote over here runs when a member logs in and when somebody logs out of the website. And that's to ensure that the UI essentially changes to match the current logged in status. So I'm also going to take this opportunity to refactor our code, and I'm going to create a new function, and I'm going to call this render UI based on logged in status. Okay, so it's a really long function name, but I prefer a nice, long, clear function name to something that's ambiguous, and you can always change it later on if necessary. So I'm just going to grab all the code that I wrote over here, and I'm going to put it here in the function instead. And then here inside of the onReady, what we're going to do is we're going to render UI based on logged in status. So essentially it's going to run all the code that we have here. So now we're back to square one with a slightly improved code base that will allow us to also implement the next steps that we want to do. So for making changes when a user logs in or logs out, essentially what we're going to want to do is we're going to tap in again to authentication, and we're going to say dot OnLogIn. And here inside of this OnLogIn, we have the option to run a function, okay, a callback function that is going to run whenever a user logs in. And I can either build out this function inside over here, so essentially have a nameless function as the callback function, or I can actually just call an existing function such as our render UI based on logged in status. And that will work for when somebody logs in. And I'm also going to want to do this when somebody logs out. So I'm going to have here authentication.onLogOut. And again, I'm going to render UI based on logged in status. Okay, so again, just to recap what we have here, we have our function, which does what we built before, which essentially checks if somebody is logged in or not, and it will show them the logged in image if they are logged in. Then we have two additional methods that we added here for authentication, which is OnLogIn and OnLogOut. And basically what it does is it runs that function again when somebody either logs into the site or logs out of the site. That Wix knows how to do. So Wix knows when somebody logs in or logs out, and then they tell our code, okay, somebody just did this, now what do you want to do? And we tell them, oh, run this function. But we still have one small thing that we need to add to this function to make it effective for OnLogOut. Because currently what our function does is it checks if somebody's logged in, and it will show the member-only image if they are logged in. but we haven't made that image disappear if they log out. So in order to do that, we're going to add an else clause over here to our function, and we're going to select that image again, so member only image, and instead of saying .expand, we are going to collapse it. Okay, and it's good to know here that there's always more than one way to solve things when it comes to coding and developing your own custom solutions. So here I decided to build one function that checks for the logged in status and then does one of two things based on the logged in status. You could technically also have functions that just either expand or collapse the image based on knowing that, for example, the user just logged in or logged out. I think that this is a slightly cleaner approach, but it's really down to a matter of preference at that point. But now that we've built this out, let me republish the site and let's head back to the live site in order to see the effects of these changes. Okay, so here we are back on the live site, and as you can see, I'm logged in and I can see both images, so that's as expected. And I'm just going to open up again the dev tools with the console logs, just so we can see things as they're happening in live. Okay, so as we can see here now, it says logged in is true. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to log out. So I'm just going to go ahead and log out. And boom. So here the page actually kind of refreshed. And you can see here now that it says is logged in is false. Okay, so it's behaving as we expected. And if I go here and log in, so I'm going to go log in with email plus tester1 at thewixwiz.com. And I'm going to have here the password and try logging in. And you can see now that as soon as I logged in, it is currently showing me the image, and we can see is logged in is true. So this is because of that callback function that we added inside of authentication.onLogin. Okay, so now the page behavior is optimized and it should work regardless of if the user is logged in now or not logged in, or if they log in while they're on the page or off the page. And that pretty much wraps up this part of the demo. I do want to explain a few things about this that I think are important to understand. So first of all, this isn't an airtight protection for your data. So this image might still be accessible to a tech-savvy person, even if they are not a logged-in member on your website. Because we're using collapse and expand and of how Wix sends over the files and renders them, this asset technically will be delivered with all of the information of your site, and somebody who knows how their way around coding and JavaScript and stuff might, and how to, access the HTML DOM and stuff, might still be able to access this asset. So this approach that I just showed you is good for probably 99% of the population, and for changes that you want to make to UI for members and non-members that isn't with critical assets that you need to protect with the utmost level of security. Okay, so this I think is a decent approach for many situations. And now I showed it with images, but you can do it with lots of things. So imagine that this was, let's say, a video that you wanted for members only. Or imagine that this was, some text or something that's for members only. Or you could block part of the text with another element and then remove it if they're not a member, etc. So again, I think that this will help you with a lot of different scenarios, but you should know that it's just not an airtight protection for your data. And it's still, if this page is not a members only page, technically a tech savvy person might be able to gain access to your assets. So with that in mind, I want to hop in and start to show you some approaches which will allow you to completely protect the data in some more critical scenarios utilizing the Wix backend. Okay, so in light of what I just mentioned about our previous implementation, I want to show you a way that you can secure your assets even more by utilizing the Wix backend. The Wix backend is essentially a server for your website, a dedicated server, and all the files and code that we have inside of the backend is not sent over until you send it using a web method, which we'll show you in a moment. And what we're going to do here in this specific scenario is we're going to have a super secret member only thing, which is going to be like a string of text. And we only want members to be able to gain access to that using this get secret button. Okay, so when a member clicks this get secret button, they will get that data. But when another user clicks the button, they won't get anything, or they'll get a warning that says you're not a member. So in order to do that, again, we're going to utilize the backend. So I'm going to do that by going here to public and backend and adding in a new web module. Okay, this new web module, I'm just going to call here secret stuff. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and get rid of all of this over here. And I'm going to leave just this boilerplate code that we start off with. And this essentially is the web method. So this is a function that we can call from our front end code and return a certain value based on the logic that we just define in the function. And what this function is going to do eventually is return our secret. So let's go ahead and create our secret. So I'm going to say here const secret equals to, this is the secret. Okay, so this is the thing that we want only members to be able to see. And I'll admit that this is not a typical way that you would store data just as a variable in the backend. There's nothing technically wrong with it, but just usually you'll have data stored in a CMS collection or in some third-party data store or something like that. I'm just doing it in a simplified manner here to really highlight the aspects of the member aspect as opposed to data retrieval and stuff like that. So in order to allow users to conditionally get this secret based on their membership status, what we're going to do is add logic into this function using the membership APIs. It's important to note that the backend APIs are a little different to the front-end APIs. So we don't have access to the member is authentication dot logged in. We're going to have to instead utilize, for example, current member. And I'll explain in a moment why that will be useful to us. One more thing that I want to note here is that when we are using web methods, we also have the option to define permissions inside of the web method. So one approach that you could technically take is to change this from permissions.anyone to permissions.siteMember. And what that means is that only site members will be able to call this web method. The reason I typically don't use this is because it doesn't allow the more nuanced access that we might want to give, which is the scenario that I would usually actually utilize the backend. And that's why I want to show you the method that I usually take, and I'll explain in a moment why I do that. But just so you know that if you simply need to allow access to this function only to site members, you can just change the permissions to site members and you're done. In our scenario, I'm going to leave it to as .anyone. I'm also going to change up some of the stuff here. So I'm going to call this, instead of multiply, this will be get secret. And here, instead of factor1, factor2, we're not going to have any parameters. And here we're just going to return our secret. So now that we have the basics of our function set up, we are going to introduce the elements that will restrict this and make it member only. So I'm going to import current member, import current member from Wix members backend. And here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to say const member equals to, and this is a promise, so we're going to need to use the await keyword, current member dot get member. Okay, and in order to facilitate this await, we're going to have to turn this into an asynchronous function like that. So essentially what this is going to do is it's not only going to check if there's a member logged in, but it will actually get us some information about that member, such as the member ID and the different, login email. I think it'll also provide. You could check the API if you want the full list of stuff that it gives you. But here I'm just highlighting that this is something that we can utilize to create a more nuanced scenario. So for example, we can check if this member belongs to a certain collection or has certain assets or has certain metadata associated with them that we might want to add as a second level of protection beyond just plain membership. So if you're just checking for generically for all members, then you can do permissions.siteMember, or you can just leave it like this pretty much and check and see if they're a current member, if there is even a member logged in. But if you want something slightly more nuanced, then this can really serve as an advantage. And I'll try and give a few more demonstrations later on once we're done with this initial demo. So here we're going to say const member equals await current member dot get member. And I'm going to add in a condition here that if no member, then we should just return, let's say, null for now. And beyond this, I'm going to also wrap this in a try catch. This is something that you're going to want to utilize whenever there's a promise or async await. Because essentially what will happen here in the backend is that if there is no member, we shouldn't even get to this line of code here, line 10 technically. We should actually just go straight here into the catch. So I'm going to add here console.log error, and I'm going to return null. Okay, so this is our get secret web method, and again, this will only return the secret if we have a logged in member. And in order to implement this on the front end, so I'm just going to copy the name of the method here. I'm going to go back to our mixed page. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to comment out all of our old code, just so that we don't let it confuse us. So I'm going to comment all this out. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new function, which is going to populate the secret. So let's create a function over here, and I'll call that function. It's going to need to be asynchronous because we're going to be taking something from the backend. And I'm going to call this populate secret. Or you can call it render secret or something like that. And what this is going to do is it's going to try and get our secret from the backend. So in order to do that, we're going to need to import the method that we just built from backend slash secret stuff dot web. And we're going to say here const secret equals to await get secret. And again, if the member is logged in, this should give us our secret, our secret sentence that we put there in the backend. And if not, it should just be null, right? And then we should say if no secret, then what we'll do is we will display, let's say, you are not a member, please log in. So in order to do that, we're going to need to give some names here, some IDs. So let's call this our secret text. And we'll call this the get secret button. Get secret button. And now what we're going to do is say if there is no secret, so it comes back null, then what we're going to do is we are going to say that secret text dot text equals to please log in. And if there is a value for the secret, then we'll say secret text dot text should be equal to the secret. Okay, and we're going to run this function populate secret whenever someone, clicks on the get secret button. Dot on click, we're going to populate secret. Again, you don't have to do it exactly like this. You don't have to do it when a button's clicked. You can do it automatically. This is just a demo. So you have to kind of take the parts that are relevant to you and adapt it to your specific scenario. It's highly unlikely that I will nail exactly your requirement for your project in a tutorial. So some, creative thought still needs to go into it. But this should be enough for us to start testing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to publish the site and head to the live site just to demonstrate this to you. So here we are on the live site, and at the moment you can see here we're just showing our default value. I could have collapsed it or not anything there or something like that. And once I go ahead and I click here get secret, then it shows this is the secret, and that's because I'm currently logged into the website. Now let me go ahead and log out, and you can see it refresh the page. And what I'm going to try and do is get the secret again. And at the moment, it is not showing anything. Okay, so that means we could possibly have a small bug. Let me go over here to the console. The text parameter of secret text that is passed to the text method cannot be set to null. So essentially what it's trying to do, and I'm leaving in the debugging because I get a lot of feedback that you do want to see the debugging. So essentially what's happening here is that this secret is coming back null, but if not secret, oh, I see what I did here. So basically line 12 and line 13 are both executing because it checks to see if it's not a secret. It sets it to please log in, but then it still runs this line again. And since secret is null, then it just it tries to put a null value on a text, which is impossible. So what I could do is I could add, let's say, a return here, and that would exit the function in this scenario. But actually, I think this is a good opportunity to optimize even more. And what I think we could do here is completely get rid of this and actually just make this a condition. So there'll be or please log in. So that means that if there's a value for secret, then it will set it to secret. But if secret is null, then it will just say, please log in. I think this is actually even better code than what I was trying to do before. So let me go ahead and publish that. And I'm going to refresh the live site. And I'm going to try again to get the secret. I'm going to refresh one more time just because sometimes the refresh doesn't go through all the way. Let me try get secret. Please log in. Okay, so now it's working well. So just to recap what we did here, we essentially built a backend web method here in secretstuff.web. And this web method, although the permissions are initially set to anyone, we created our own custom logic, which essentially checks for membership before we ship that data to the front end. And that means that in no way will a non-member be able to access whatever data it is, whether it's an image, whether it's a video, whether it's text, as long as that data is correctly protected also at the source, re the permissions that I was talking about for the CMS collections. So this pretty much wraps up our tutorial, but I do want to point out a few things which I think you might find useful, even though I'm not going to do a full demo of them. So if you want to stick around for that, I'm going to hop into it right now. Okay, so for those of you who have stuck around, a few bonus comments which I think you will find useful. And these are for even more nuanced situations where you want to utilize certain aspects of a member's data or roles in order to customize what they can gain access to and can't gain access to. So one thing that you'll find useful in that respect is this get roles API. It can be called on current member, just like get member was, and it can be used both in the front end and the back end. So how would this be implemented? So for example, if we go to this backend web method that we built, so what we could do here, instead of doing current member.getMember, we could also do current member.getRoles. And this will give us back an array with all of the different member roles that this member has. And then we can customize what happens in the rest of the function based on the roles we got back. So for example, we could send them the secret if they have that role or don't have that role, etc. You could technically also do this on the back end, so similar to the first demo with the image, but just note that, again, when you're doing it on, front end, I don't know if I said back end or front end, but you could also use this on the front end. Just note that just like with the image demo, technically a tech-savvy person will be able to overcome this usage. Okay, so if you want it super secure, backend, if it's fine that only 99% people and not 100% of the people it'll work for, then you can also use get roles in the front end. Another API related to access for members that you would probably find useful is the list current member orders. This is part of the pricing plans APIs. If I'm not mistaken, it is both in the back end and in the front end. And essentially what it does is it gives you a list of all of the pricing plans that this user is subscribed to. Note that you do still have to check to see, for example, if that pricing plan is active or not. But basically what this will allow you to do is to do another level of customized experience and accessibility based on if a member is subscribed to a certain pricing plan. So like you can make basically everything that I demonstrated earlier, but just let's say for people who are paying you a certain monthly subscription, etc. So only for paying customers. This needs to be used in tandem with the pricing plans app. So if you're not familiar with that, you'll want to familiarize yourself with that first. But if you're already using pricing plans and you're trying to figure out how to make certain content only accessible to certain subscribers, then this API would be very useful to you in either of the methods that we demonstrated. Last but not least, another tool that Wix has that also can be customized based on membership is the Wix routers. And I'm really not going to talk too much because I have a whole tutorial just about Wix routers. But just note that within Wix routers, which is a tool which it can essentially route you to different pages based on the initial URL request, you have a role property inside of the request which specifies if they are an admin, member, or visitor. And basically you can route them based on that. You can also introduce all of the more nuanced techniques that I demonstrated inside the router itself. So that's something else you might want to explore when you're trying to give a unique experience and accessibility to members versus non-members. So with that, I am going to wrap up our tutorial for today. We talked about a bunch of stuff. We started off with some no-code ways to make certain things accessible to members only, whether it's via member-only pages or via permissions on the CMS collections. We talked a little bit about business solutions and some things that you can customize there for members, and then we hopped into the code demos where we first showed how you would show versus hide or collapse and expand an image for members only. And then we talked about a slightly more complex implementation and secure implementation using the Wix backend and web methods. And finally, we just did those few bonus points. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like. And if you want to see more videos like this every week, then I would recommend subscribing to the channel. But that's just me. I'm a little biased. I'd love to hear your comments. I try to respond to all comments. If I didn't respond to your comment, it might be overly specific or lacking in detail. In either of those scenarios, you're also welcome to hop over to our forum at thewixwiz.com and leave a slightly more detailed explanation of what you're trying to do with some screenshots and stuff. And then hopefully we will be able to help you. And with that, I will wrap up and I hope to see you next time.